This is the Museum for Islamic Art, and it's actually located right by the President House of Israel. Now, the story of this museum, I think, and the vision of this museum is very important for the story, and especially in Israel in those days, and the connection to Uzbekistan is very important for us. At this point, I would like to join the greetings for the organizer of this congress, and to thank you for hosting it. So the Museum for Islamic Art is actually exists in Israel since 1974. And so since 1974 it was established, and the collection was established by a very famous professor named Richard Ettinghausen, who collected I think about 2,500 artifacts from all over Islamic region. Civilizations from different periods. As you can see, I wrote it. It's from India to Andalusia, and you can see from the 7th century until the 19th century collection. Beautiful collection, very, very important collection that came to Israel. The whole idea behind it, next please. So Vera, as I said, established a museum, and this ball from Iran, Shipur, 10th century. It has this beautiful design and the word Barakah. Barakah is blessed, greetings. And the idea with these birds, this is the symbol of the museum, this is the logo of our museum. Vera thought that this would be a bless, that she will give kind of a blessing, greetings to these nations, to all these nations who live in Israel, and maybe to have more understanding between populations. And that's actually the vision of the museum, and as a director for the last year and a half, we're trying to bring as many people into the museum and to teach a little bit about Islamic art, Jewish art, and in general, the Islamic art, the Jews in the Islamic world were actually sharing the same ideas, the same art. And as you will see in the next presentation, you would see a lot of similarity between Jews and Muslims, and therefore we thought it would be very good and important to present it. Next. So Ettinghausen actually decided to start the collection from the pre-Islamic period, mostly Sasanian, but also Coptic art. And in here you can see two drinking vessels, beautiful vessels made of silver, covered with gold and yellow. And this is from Iran, 7th, 8th century. And as you can see on the left, there are more professional people about it who can explain about it, but kind of images or interpretation of images of angels with wings. And on the right, the pomegranate, which is very famous and very, I would say, holy fruit for Jews, Muslims all over the world. Next slide. This cup is from Iran. It's part of the collection, and it's beautiful and symbolizes also the culture that exists, the art that exists in the region. And it's the hand, or the hamsa, or you can call it whatever, but everyone in this region believes that this is Allah, something for Allah. People are actually hanging it on their doors in Israel, all over Israel, Palestine, and the region. And you can see from the 9th century, actually we see it even before, much more. There are graves on the 5th, 6th century BCE that we can see this hand. Maybe that's the goddess name, Anna, which mentioned in the Bible. And maybe later we can actually hear about Fatima, who was actually the hand is the symbol of Fatima. It presents her because of a very special story about her hearing that Ali was getting married for brought another woman, and then she was cooking and she got burned. So therefore, this idea of the hand, but it actually exists here for ages, for a very long time, and we all use it, we know it, and it's beautiful to see that the location is actually strong and art going through civilization. Next, please. Harari Hort is one of the most important hoard that we have in the museum. It actually was found during the 20s of the last century in a cave in between Iran and Afghanistan. And Ralph Ferrari, the collector, actually bought this marvelous collection. It's all made of silver with some gold and yellow technique. And it's very special because it was stayed. We're not sure why, but most probably merchants or thieves that actually took it, and they were afraid of their life. So they found a cave, they hid this beautiful artifact in a jug, crater, and they put it there for a very long time. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, they never got back to this cave. And when they found it, it was in great shape. Of course, this is Seljuk from the 11th century, and we're assuming this is from Khorasan. Khorasan, because of the technique that you can see here. Please, next. I picked this beautiful this beautiful vessel because you can see in the middle of it. This is a plate. Sorry. In the middle of it, you can see what we call today the Star of David, but believe me, in the 11th century, it was not the Star of David. It's a star. It's a beautiful star with 6 angles, and that's what we see in here. Somewhere about 500, 600 years ago, Jewish population adopted this symbol. It was not originally symbol of Israel or Jewish people. It was just later on become. And this is part of the symbols that we all share, which is stars, different shapes of stars, and of course around it you can see a bless in Arabic for those who wrote this beautiful play. Next. Okay, this manuscript is Mersalat and Dawat al-Atiba, and this one is one of the most beautiful and important manuscripts we have in our museum. It's from the 13th century, and it's about a young doctor who lived in Baghdad, born in Baghdad. He's Christian, and he's criticizing in his manuscript, in his description, he is criticizing the other doctor, old doctor, who always just following the Greek translation to Arabic, which is a miracle, by the way. The biggest miracle for our civilization is translations from the Greek to Arabic language, and then today's knowledge. So he's criticizing him for using only ancient knowledge and not using the latest 200, 300 years information that other doctors were actually approaching and got. And this is very interesting manuscript, and as you can see, it's beautiful as well, and it's very, very rare. Next. This is a cup, a beautiful glass cup that we're presenting. Also, again, you can see in different times. Again, I picked this star to emphasize how strong it is. These symbols are very strong in our region. This one is from Syria, and I'll put a question mark. We're not sure if it's exactly from Syria or Egypt, but we're talking about the region of Syria, Egypt, Israel, Palestine, and so next. Qurans. We do have the Qurans pages at the museum, like the right one, as you can see, from 11th, 12th century. We have even older Quran papers. And on the left, you can see very small Qurans. Quran cover, first of all, Osman, and number 7 is a very small Quran. It's about 1.5 centimeter, and we took actually very, we looked inside, and the Quran is full and complete. Of course, no one could read. It's not for reading. This is an amulet. And small books, we do know that people use small books as an amulet, as blessed, as greetings before they're going for war, before they're going for journey, and this is something that we all use. Thanks. This is a hookah. This is a Mogul hookah, beautiful hookah, and from the 17th century, of course, Islamic art was going to this region also and influenced this region of India by the decorations, by the food, also, and other reasons. In here you can see just beautiful garden. Most probably it was for women, and it was personal hookah, very small one. This one is about 15 centimeters. Next. So about a little bit about latest things that we're doing at the museum. We had a coffee exhibition in 2021 and collaboration with Hotel de Marine, loan agreement with Hotel de Marine, and then Paisley exhibition. We just opened a Paisley exhibition that Paisley, most of you probably know, is a design that originally came from Iran, and I'm going to speak about it later a little bit. Next thing is food exhibitions that we're actually making a research about food during the 8th, 9th, 10th century, Abbasian food, how it was and how is it today, and how they eat, what was exactly in this period, and along the time, and a little bit about Islamic vision of food, what is food, why people love these, using a lot of food, and collaboration with the Louvre of Paris. This is for next year also, and collaboration with the Uzbekistan embassy, and hopefully the book that we're going to present next. At the museum, we have 45 artifacts from Uzbekistan, mostly jewelry, batteries. Most of them are actually from the recent years, and I would say that most of them came from collectors or people from the community, the Jewish community, who used to live in Uzbekistan. Next. This is one of the ancient artifacts, and the only one, unfortunately, from this region from the 10th to 11th century, and you can see the Iranian influence in this clay pottery. Next. The Suzanine maybe symbolize this region the most, and this beautiful it's a brasserie. It's about 3 meters on 3 meters square. It's huge, and it's very detailed. Next. In the middle of it, you can see kind of flowers, and it's decorated with paisley. Of course, all of it made in all the Suzanine, all of it is silk. It's silk wires. Next. You can see the flowers inside, and after we're researching about paisley, we can figure out why the paisley looks like this. Next, please. Like this. So this is actually, most probably, that's what we think. This is the cypress tree. This is symbolizing cypress tree. It's called the boter in the Persian language. And you can see that the top of it is actually going a little bit down. And the story tells about, there's a story, very ancient story about a storm came to the region of Persia. And the flowers were right by the cypress tree, big cypress tree, were asking him to help them, to save them. And he was very generous, and he was actually guarding and protecting them and putting all the flowers inside of him during the storm. And therefore, if you look carefully, most of the paisley you see are filled with flowers, most probably because of these traditions that follow next. This is another Suzanine from the 19th, 20th century. Of course, at the museum, unfortunately, we're not presenting a lot of the artifacts because we need to make, like this one, we need to make conservation and restoration. Our museum is a small museum, so we're picking only the things that are going to be presented. And this is very little, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get to this one also. Next. Again, Suzanine in the gray gray. Next, the cut. The cut is very important, although the technique came from Indonesia. We can see a huge impact of this region of Uzbekistan of the cut. Next, in different shapes. Next, and on the Israeli artists who actually took the techniques and the symbols and they put it together. In the middle to the left you can see this Balaïch, which is a very famous fashion designer who made this paisley Suzanine, ikat. Of course, jewelry I mean, Greek necks, beautiful necks. Here you see divided, it's actually two pasties from both sides in earring necks, necklace,